Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Neoliberal podcast. We have breaking news or an update on the John Anthony Castro legal battle or fight to clear his name. This is a special update on John Anthony Castro, motion for mistrial, government concessions, and ongoing legal battle. For those of us who follow the show, you guys are aware that John Anthony Castro has been on the show before. He was suing the FEC during the 2020, what was it, 2025, 2024 elections. He was running for president. He is a member of the GOP. He was a candidate. He was president and founder of AI Tax. It was valued at once for $180 million. He was suing Donald. He was one of the first persons who helped to popularize and to reignite this whole idea of Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. And in order for him to sue Donald Trump, he said, I believe he was running so that he can establish standing in order to sue Donald Trump. Okay, and of course he's a member of the GOP. At the time, he was, now we know he is in federal prison because in the heat of his lawsuit against Donald Trump, and of course he had a primary. He was running as a candidate. His primary bid wouldn't. I mean, there was wasn't much light. Wasn't much. I mean, he was not going to win the presidency, but we know that candidates can still affect other candidates. But he's been on the show time and time again to give us an update on his campaign and on his lawsuit, which was everywhere. And but of course, he in the midst of all of that, he was thrown in jail. We carried the show. He got a 15-year sentence. He filed taxes on behalf of clients and were who he believed were commandeered to concoct some kind of conspiracy to throw him in jail. He believes he's a political prisoner. We're going to talk about that in this brief today. Of course, in the title of this episode, this serious news commentary is we're providing an update on John Anthony Castro, the motion for mistrial. He has filed a motion or is filing a motion for mistrial, government concessions, and ongoing legal battle. In November of 2025, John Anthony Castro filed an emergency motion for mistrial, raising serious constitutional concerns about the conduct of the government during his prosecution. The motion alleged that federal prosecutors entered into undisclosed agreements with key witnesses, including criminal immunity arrangements without notifying Castro or his defense team. According to the filing, Castro and his attorneys were never given the opportunity to review or agree to critical stipulations presented during trial, the trial that he was found guilty, the trial that eventually led to his conviction. In the government's response, prosecutor Lauren Murphy acknowledged just late last year that Castro's Sixth Amendment rights were violated because he was not afforded the opportunity to properly discuss or challenge those stipulations with witnesses. Let's turn to government concessions. In its response filed on Thanksgiving, and this started from about last year, Halloween, but in its response filed on Thanksgiving, the government conceded that Castro's Sixth Amendment rights were violated and acknowledged that evidence had been suppressed. However, the prosecution did not address allegations concerning a secret criminal immunity deal granted to witness Linda Rivera, and others. Castro's legal team argues that by failing to respond to that issue in its 54-page response brief, the government effectively forfeited the argument. They maintain that the omission was deliberate, asserting that the prosecution avoided addressing the immunity agreement because doing so would further expose misconduct. Let's talk about the motion for release and the Fifth Circuit ruling. Following the government's concession, Castro filed a motion for release, arguing that his conviction cannot stand where constitutional violations and undisclosed immunity agreements tainted the proceedings. He is asking for mistrial. He also alleged that witnesses were coerced into agreements that were never disclosed to the defense prior to conviction. Now, on December 8th of last year, the Fifth Circuit denied the motion for release. He went back and they denied it again. Castro contends that the appellate court declined to require a government response to certain issues. Now, despite procedural rules mandating one, effectively shielding prosecutors from further admission. The DOJ let's shift gears to the DOJ development because there is a development in the case today. Stephen Giltrap, chief of the appellate division at the Department of Justice and reportedly involved in oversight of the case. He was involved in the oversight of the case. He resigned in December. And of course, Castro believes that the resignation was connected to the controversy surrounding his prosecution and the difficulty that members of the DOJ have in defending the government's position and continuing to have Mr. Castro remain in prison. Now, as it relates to the political prisoner claim, Castro has publicly stated that in light of the constitutional violations now on record and the government's concessions, his continued incarceration is political in nature. He asserts that his prosecution was retaliatory and that his imprisonment now rests on political grounds. He has indicated his intention to seek review beyond domestic courts, including potential appeals to international human rights bodies. Now, there's been a recent development just a couple of days ago, January 15th. After multiple delays, the Department of Justice has reportedly chosen not to contest certain aspects of the case and has declined to further defend or prosecute related matters despite acknowledged constitutional violations, including alleged Fifth Amendment concerns. Now, Castro's attorneys are preparing to file an expedited motion for default judgment, arguing that the government's concessions, the government is conceding, the government concessions warrant immediate relief and release. So the government or the prosecution is saying, yes, at this point, we agree that there were stipulations that and agreements that Castro and his team was not made aware of. And and now that they are acknowledging these concessions, John Castro is saying that the government concessions warrant immediate relief and release. His release and his relief. Additionally, Castro filed a writ of mandamus on Tuesday, seeking to compel lower courts to act and issue rulings on the pending matters now that the government is conceding in some ways. Throughout this process, Castro has publicly stated that he remains prayerful and hopeful, maintaining faith despite the ongoing loyal uncertainty. The case now turns on whether the case now turns on whether the courts will grant relief in light of the government's concession and the unresolved questions surrounding undisclosed immunity agreements. Of course, this particular article is available in the Neoliberal journals at theneoliberal.com and also in the Neoliberal post at renaldocmckenzie.com. And let it just to provide you with a summary. Uh, and of course, the question is, before I do that, when the government admits a constitutional violation, what comes next? In November 2025, John Anthony Castro filed an emergency motion for mistrial, alleging undisclosed immunity deals and suppressed evidence. On Thanksgiving, federal prosecutor Lauren Murphy conceded that his Sixth Amendment rights were violated, yet he remains in federal prison. The Fifth Circuit Court denied his motion for release. Now, a writ of mandamus has now been filed. An expedited motion for default ruling is coming. If rights are acknowledged but freedom is denied, what does justice look like? Okay? Stay informed. Ask hard questions. The Constitution is not decorative. And of course, you can message us at info@theneoliberal.com. And of course, we are dubbing this free John Anthony Castro. If he's free and deserves to be free because of his rights were violated, then of course, free the man. Okay? Free the man. Come on now. Free the man. He is a human being and his rights were clearly violated. Free the man. So for those of us who need a case update summary, it is United States versus John Anthony Castro. The issues raised again: alleged this undisclosed criminal immunity agreement granted to witness Linda Rivera, alleged coercion of witnesses into agreement, in presentation of stipulations without defendants' informed agreement, alleged suppression of evidence, Sixth Amendment violation conceded by government, and the alleged Fifth Amendment violations. The government response: first of all, prosecutor Lauren Murphy conceded the Sixth Amendment violation. Secondly, the government acknowledged suppression of evidence, and thirdly, the government did not address alleged criminal immunity in a 54-page brief. In terms of the procedural history of this case, an emergency motion for mistrial was filed from way back in November. The second thing is that motion for release was denied by the Fifth Circuit Court in December. A writ of mandamus is being filed seeking to compel lower courts action, and an expedited motion for default ruling is forthcoming. Additional development, of course, is Stephen Gilstrap, chief of DOJ Appellate Division, resigned in December of 2025, and many believe that it's as a result of this particular case. The current status again: Castro remains incarcerated in federal prison, and further appellate and extraordinary relief motion is pending. This is the Neoliberal podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Please, if you want to know more about this story, you can message us at info@theneoliberal.com. Support us so that this show can grow, and continue to subscribe, like, share, and comment. Visit theneoliberal.com and renaldocmckenzie.com.